Hey, and good afternoon. I am so glad you guys have joined me here today. I'm Angela Brown, and I'm here with Shawn Day from Hire, Lead, Chill. Now, one of the most interesting things about today's conversation is we are going to have a really difficult conversation that many of you ask me about all the time, which is how do I find and hire good employees, right? So we've gone right to the source himself. And Shawn has owned a professional house cleaning company for 20 years. And so he ran into a lot of the same challenges that many of us have run into over the years. What's really interesting is he had 11 different service companies in a variety of different areas, and he had over 100 employees. And so he said, wait a second, I've got to really master the art of hiring people and keeping them motivated to show up for business every day and all the things. Okay. So we're going to ask all the questions today, and Shawn is going to give us all the answers. I know, I'm super excited, right? What a great way to start out the year. So I want to encourage you guys to jump into the comments, to say hi, and to ask your questions so that we can get those answered today. So thank you for joining me, and please help me welcome Shawn Day. How are you today, Shawn?
Good, Angela. Thanks for having me on. Hi, everybody.
We've got Nick who says, woohoo. We've got Rachel Rose from England. Hey, Rachel, how are you today? Good to see you. She says, yay. Nick says 10, T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yippee. Okay, so that was our countdown. Yippee. Thank you, Nick, for participating. Rachel says, hello, how much should I charge to clean a residential oven? Is $10 or $12 okay? The answer to that is no, that is way too low. But if you guys have questions about cleaning, leave those in the notes below, and we are going to answer those as soon as this conversation is over, because today we're going to be talking all about the hiring cleaning employees. Okay, so this is a really fun conversation we've been waiting for a very, very long time. Alex says, nice to see you guys. It is so good to see you as well. So hi and welcome, you guys. All right, so Shawn, I'm really curious. This is the beginning of a new year. Many of us are going to branch out. We're going to hire a bunch of cleaning employees. What do we need to know?
Well, good news. January is probably the best month of the year to start recruiting. Mm-hmm. If you just Google it, you'll find that there's a bunch of blogs and a bunch of recruiters and job boards like Indeed that will tell you January is the time to recruit for a number of reasons. So I think that's good news. If you think about it, in this country, we have this thing we call New Year's Eve on January 1, and we all have these resolutions. And what happens is their health and always what? Career and finance. We're going to make more money. We're going to change jobs. We're going to find a better job than what I have now. And January becomes very fluid in the marketplace. And I think if you're looking to hire in the next month or two, I would highly suggest you really, really start recruiting and engaging right after this podcast.
So when you use the term recruiting, tell us a little bit more about that. What does that mean?
Great question. Recruiting to me means this. If you use the word marketing in any sentence, I can take the word marketing out of that sentence and replace it with the word recruiting. Okay. And so it's an entire marketing system to research your labor market, engage with candidates in your labor market, and have a system to run them through that engagement and relationship and screening and vetting and finding out who the best people are to sit down at an interview table and hire the best that you can. That's really what I look at and view recruiting as.
Well, that's a really great answer. So it sounds like it's an ongoing conversation with the market to say, we're constantly looking for good help. And when the right person comes along, then you hire them, or do you wait until you're just desperate and you're kind of between jobs? You've got too many jobs and you're just scrambling around, and then you're like, we need to hire right now.
Yeah, that's a great question too. One of the things that we did many years ago, 6-7 years ago, was that we created this idea, and we call it the ABCs of recruiting. Always be recruiting. That's what we say. Always be recruiting. And we've all decided to enter an industry that has high turnover. Mm-hmm. The cleaning industry has had high turnover 30 years ago, has it today, will have it 30 years from now. It does not mean you need to be short-staffed. That is a completely different thing. To your point, Angela, we are recruiting all the time. If you're are a company that has 1 or 2 employees, you're getting your first employee, you still want to keep cultivating and developing those relationships. There's plenty of places online and boots on the ground. The old stuff that we used to do, hire, a hired sign or our hiring or now hiring sign outside. I call that boots on the ground stuff. All of that can be done for free and doesn't take a heck of a lot of time. Why on earth would you not do that if it's free and doesn't take a lot of time to possibly cultivate relationships with people that you might need or want to hire in a month or 2 or 3?
So hire, lead, chill, is that somebody that can come in and take over that relationship building for us? Or is it a series of things that we have to learn from you so that we can do them ourselves?
I think you can do either of those 2 things. So with my philosophy, I've been in the cleaning industry for about 30 years, and it's about 30, almost 35 years now. So I'm not motivated by money at all. I'm truly not. I really am passionate about helping and serving other people, and I don't mean that as a cliche. So I've been accused of giving away the secret sauce a lot with what we do, and I am fine with that. I will literally, if you set up a Zoom with me, for example, I have no problem talking, even if it's not about recruiting. I'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. If you want to talk about recruiting, I will literally show you the step-by-step process, including the screening, the questions, all the things that we do for our own cleaning companies, and what we've done for thousands of cleaning companies around the country. And you can take that information and try it in-house or on your own. And I will help you to some extent with that, to the best I can. Or if you'd like, you can use our application tracking system, which is like a CRM, right? A customer relationship management tool for recruiting. It's very easy to use. You can use it on your own, or if you'd like, and this might be for a company that has 5 or more employees, you can hire us to be sort of your full-time recruiting department. So you've got all those options.
So you just mentioned CRM, which is a customer relationship management program. Most of us think of a CRM as a place where we keep track of our customers, not our employees or potential employees. So explain to us a little bit about what that is and why we would want those people inside our CRM.
A beautiful question. We actually call it a candidate relationship management tool, right? And again, everything we do in marketing, I can do in recruiting. I literally can, from I can go on and on, the job ad and everything else, but it's a relationship building thing. That's what we do with our clients. When a prospective client tries to reach out to you to get a price or some more information about your cleaning service, and you talk with them, or however you communicate with them, and they decide not to use you for some reason, you don't just throw their contact information out and go away. You might send an email out every now and again, put them in an automated campaign. That's exactly what we do, and highly suggest you do with the candidates out there, because it doesn't mean they're a bad person because they didn't take the job. Even if you offer somebody a job and you've gone through that entire recruiting process, Angela, it does not mean that they are bad people because they didn't accept the job, or they even if they decided not to show up to an interview, or called you and said, I'm not going to show up it doesn't make them a bad person. They might have just gotten another job. Maybe their boss said, you know what, I will give you that raise and I'll do whatever I can to keep you because you're a great employee, right? And so we, in fact, will communicate with them after interviews sometimes. Sometimes if they come in and score really well on our system, but for whatever reason they never set up an interview, we've got them in a drip campaign just like you would a prospective client.
All right. So many of the house cleaners that are just getting started in the business are unfamiliar with what a drip campaign is. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it basically is a way to continue communicating with somebody and building a relationship with them so that when they are ready to make a move, because what the cleaning company down the road from you promised them is not coming true for them, or maybe they're upset about their job and they're ready to make a move. If you're emailing them every now and again, maybe every month or two, and just saying, hi, I'm still here, just letting you know, if you're not happy where you're at, we're still hiring, love to meet with you, so on and so forth. Because when somebody is ready to make that move, the first person you want them to think about is you. And you've taken the time to reach out to them and actually care about them and build a relationship with them and engage with them. And it doesn't take a lot of time to do, but it's super potent.
So you said you have a software that does the drip campaign, that does the customer relationship management, or the recruiting relationship management, candidate recruiting management. What is the software that you use, and tell us about how we use it to nurture those relationships?
Sure. So they're called application tracking systems. And if you Googled that, there's probably thousands of them out there. So there's a variety of different ones you can use. We choose Go High Level. And actually Go High Level is more for marketing companies than it was for recruiting. But because our mindset is that hiring a person is the biggest sale of our life, that's the way we literally view that. We use a marketing tool, a CRM, Go High Level, to take care of our recruiting system. That's what we use, and it's phenomenal.
So I want to say something that is going to sound really confusing to a lot of people that are just starting in the house cleaning business. And I want to preface this by saying that we're also speaking to a whole bunch of property managers today that are also in the B&B and vacation rental industry, as well as realtors that do move in, move out cleaning. Okay, so we've got a really wide audience we're speaking to today. And one of the things that I want to remind you of is, while we are focused on the cleaning end of the business, Shawn has just said something really important, and I don't want it to slip by. And that's that we need to always be marketing. Because what happens when we are able to articulate our marketing message, this is what our business does, this is why we need your help, this is what we're looking for. What happens is this: your happy employees who love working for your company can turn around and they can recruit their friends. And so it's not just cold leads that you're looking for, but if your message is clear, it's going to be easier for other people to share that message as well. Your clients can share the message with people that they know, and it might even be some of their children or their spouses that are looking for jobs. It can be your employees that already have a job with you and they understand what your company culture is. And it can also be people that are not going to come work for your company. They might be working for another company, but they say, you know what, I heard this company over here is really great. And they will send referrals and recommendations because they themselves are not in a position to hire the new candidate, but they will send them over to your company as a referral because they know that you're a good company and you're going to take care of their friends.
Absolutely. And that's all about relationships. Everything you just outlined there, Angela, is about building relationships and just being open and moving and contacting people. And that's it. You never are going to get what you want by staring at the wall. You need to move, you need to go around, and you need to just talk. And all of a sudden, really good things start to happen.
So tell us how important the company culture is. How do you become a company that people want to work for?
Culture is so important, and many times we think of culture as the retainment part of the recruiting cycle, right, or system. But we view that as a selling point in the job ad as well, and the messaging in between. Culture is one of those things that if you have it dialed in really, really well, that alone can take you to a level that you didn't think you can get to. And the other thing with it on the flip side is, if one person is allowed to come into your business and not adhere to your culture and your core values, can absolutely destroy a business quicker than almost anything I can think of, really. And so the culture is absolutely important. We feel it's so important that if you were to come to any employee of Hire, Lead, and Chill, they're going to be able to recite our culture word for word and our core values word for word. And everybody will say the same thing because we truly believe in it. We talk about it, we live it, we breathe it. And I don't want it to get away from me because it's that important to us.
You have a reputation as being an employer with a heart, where you have helped employees through some really difficult times. How important is it to treat your employees as an extended part of your company business or your company family, if you will?
Yeah. We can have a whole show on that. Um, I think that it's not a bad idea to treat your employees almost like your children. And I mean that with all due respect, in that you've got to be caring, but you've got to be tough sometimes. You really are looking out for their best interest. And you've got to have some difficult discussions. And sometimes there's going to be situations where you're going to find out that there's some things going on in their personal life. And if they're going to allow you in to talk about that and open up to you, number one, I think if you've got some good leadership and good culture, that should be a part of the culture. They should feel comfortable, or at least maybe it's not comfortable for them, but they should at least know that they should be able to go to you and open up about, hey, there's something going on with my boyfriend, my wife, my kids, whatever it is. And this is why, I wasn't real, happy with what happened yesterday. And I just wanted to talk to you about it. Mm-hmm. I actually miss those conversations. That's raw. That's life. And I love that stuff. And I don't know why. I don't know if it makes me strange or whatever, but if I can be helpful to somebody that's been really helpful to me and good to me and help me pay my mortgage, my rent, my utility bills, and my car payment, I want to do whatever I can to help them out.
Well, and what I hear you say is when we go the extra mile to try to help our employees, they in turn turn around and they want to help us and they become loyal to us and they show up for work and they treat their customers, whom they are frontline to, with respect and with the same common courtesies that we showed to them. And I think that's an extension of the company culture. Is that about right?
Yeah, it's all based around your company culture. Your company culture has to be what you want it to be, though. I'll give you an example. There's a guy that we recruit for, and his company culture is simple. If you're not somebody I would hang out with and watch a ball game with, I don't want to hire you. And that's literally his culture. That's what so he's got pinball machines in the office. He's got all these things, but he wants it to be not necessarily like we're all buddies necessarily. We all have to hang out after work, but for some reason with that culture, they all hang out after work, and it works pretty darn good for him.
All right, so I've got a couple of questions. How do we find employees that we can bring into our company culture that will be a good fit for us?
Yeah. The number one thing that I see that I never used to do until I really, really understood the business. And as Angela said, I had a cleaning company for 20 years. And I can tell you that I never used to research my labor market. I never once researched my labor market. I can tell you what my competition was charging. I can tell you the demand side of it, the marketing side of it, but I never really understood it. So you can get a lot from that. One of the ways that you can do that is getting on Indeed.com, and they've got free things you can look up. ZipRecruiter's got some free insights that you can look up and find out what others are doing and paying. And one of the big things that you can do on some of the job boards is find the keywords that people are looking for, when people, meaning job candidates, job seekers, what are they actually typing in when they're looking for a job? And so if you're looking at keywords on the job boards and they give you those keywords are keywords that are coming from the job candidate and the job seeker. And I'll give you an example of how important it is. We owned a window cleaning company in Minneapolis, Minnesota, one north Cincinnati, Ohio, just north of Cincinnati, Ohio. And we used the job title general labor in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now, if I just said that works great there, and we hired 40 technicians there, we've got a much smaller cleaning company in Cincinnati, Ohio. And if I said, oh, we don't need to do the research, it works great in Minneapolis, we'd lose about 40% of our applications that come in because house cleaning or house cleaner job title worked much better there. It's different. It's as though very much like this. If you smack me in the face with a sneaker, I wouldn't know what you hit me with. I buy tennis shoes. I have no idea what a soda looks like. I buy pop where I'm from. Those things matter in different parts of the country. So that's one of the things I see. There's a lot of other things I can tell you, but that's one thing I think that maybe your audience hasn't thought about that I wanted to just kind of give a little gold nugget.
Well, when we speak about researching the job market, are you talking about just researching other cleaning companies? Or are you talking about other jobs that are in the same general home service or the same price range?
It's when I say general or labor market, I mean not just ABC Cleaning Company. I mean, do you have an Amazon warehouse? That's your competition. Retail, that's your competition. One of the best things that we found out a couple years ago as a strategy is we're able to hire a lot of people that work at motels and hotels. And, imagine what you see in clean, and it's 24/7, 365, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, and all that, and compare that to your job. Sometimes you walk into a home, you don't even know it's dirty because you're doing it for maybe somebody that just needs some dusting. And so it's a whole different thing, and you're going to make more money doing that. So it's basically whoever is in that market that you would hire. And it doesn't have to be somebody at another cleaning company, no. Or another home service business for that matter. It could be retail, it could be a restaurant. That's our labor market.
So one of the questions that I'm really curious about is what are some of the characteristics or qualities that you look for in a person that you hire?
I think this will be a little bit different. So when we started putting our recruiting system together, I collected a lot of data and data, and learned a lot through our data. And so what we did was this. After we were getting so much data, I'm thinking I can build a car with this stuff after we're done. So I said, wait a minute, we've got to really focus. What are we actually trying to accomplish here? And I said, forget what we know, forget what we think we know. Here's a magic wand. What is the number one most important piece of data we can find out about a human being that we would want to hire? And we all decided after conversation, it's this. How long are you going to last with my company? Period. End of story. So we've got a series of questions that find that out. And I'll give you the question, or I'll give you the data on it if you've got a couple of seconds here. One of the questions that we ask is this. If you get the job, which one of these three things would upset you the most? And it's a drop-down menu. They have to choose one of our three answers. One of the answers they can choose is someone's always late to work and the owner or manager doesn't say a thing about it. Now, on the surface, that's a very reasonable answer. I'm coming to work every day. I'm 10 minutes early. Jane over here shows up late twice a week and nobody even says anything about it. Here's the problem. If we're looking at the data says this, and this is past employees of ours, that those that answer, someone's always late to work and the owner or manager doesn't say a thing about it, on average only last 9 months or less with our company. That's it. You get low score for that answer because that's the thing we're trying to find out. So that's one. One you probably haven't thought about maybe because it's a little unique and quirky is we find that if we can find technicians that understand business in general, more so than other technicians, they tend to be much, much better employees. And what we tend to find is I don't expect them to write our marketing strategy or something like that, but maybe the important key to that is maybe their parents owned a business. Maybe they worked for an uncle's pizza place as teenagers. Their best friend's parents owned a business. They know business owners. What we find is four things come to the surface. Number one, we tend to not have to babysit them as much. And that was a big pet peeve of mine. I didn't want to babysit employees. Number two is they tend to be better problem solvers and have better judgment. Those two things kind of go hand in hand. The third thing is that they tend to be more loyal. And I think the reason for that is if you know a business owner or you were close to a business owner, you probably know that we work ungodly amount of hours many times. We're really hard workers. We care about good employees in our communities and things like that. I think that creates some empathy towards business owners, which creates loyalty. And the fourth thing we see, and this one not as often, but we tend to see really possible good leadership skills. And so if we find two of those four, we kind of have silver. If we get three of those four, we got gold. So that's a little bit unique, I think. But I'll leave you with one question. If there's anything that you take from this, the best question in the world, and it's worth tens of thousands of dollars. And it's very simple. Rate your luck in life from 0 to 10. Let me give you just quick data, Angela, on that with us and most of our clients. The magic number's under 6. Those that answer under a 6 with our company, on average, last a whopping 3 months or less with our company. So it's very, very, very difficult to get to an interview table with us if you answer under a 6. There's a couple exceptions to that rule, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of maybe some different things you haven't thought about out there.
Tell me why you ask that question.
I'll give you I'll give you the answer that probably many of you think is the answer, and in part it's true. Yep, they're negative. Woe is me. I'm unlucky in life, and life just stinks, and all that. That's true. But the other couple things with it, we find that they take zero ownership when things go wrong. They don't help. They never take ownership. And let me give you a quick example. And I think it's, a lot of you out there will recognize this story. Very quick. I had 2 employees. One was a really good employee, positive all the time. The other one, not so. And it's happened to both of them. And one of them, I'll get 3 complaints from clients in the same week. And it's this employee. And it's not, oh, it just doesn't feel clean. It's the toilets are not clean. It's specific. So when that happens, it's our fault. When 3 different clients the same week, exactly the same problem with the same employee. There's no doubt it's our fault. The employee that answers under a 6, when you approach them on it, will say, I have no idea what they're talking about. I do what I always do at every single house I go to. That's what you get with the under 6. The one that's over a 6 is going to be the one that says, you know what? I had a horrible week last week. I will do whatever I can to fix this. Give me their phone numbers. I'll go there Sunday, whatever it takes. That's a whole different story and an attitude that's much different. And that's the importance of that question.
So instead of saying, how do you rate your luck in life? Could I also ask the question, and maybe just rephrase it a different way, to say this? Who is responsible for the success of your job?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that if we tend to do this, though, the only thing I would caution about with something like that is we stay away during the application questions. We stay away from open-ended questions. And I know that's a little bit different out there, but I am a big data-driven guy. I don't want to have a bunch of sentences written and then I have to read a bunch of sentences. I want drop-down menus, choose one of mine because I know the best answer, I know the okay answer, and I know the worst answer. That's very simple and clean for me to go through that. The other thing we find with open-ended questions, and we've got a lot of data on this, and this can change with the labor market, and we have changed this with the labor market. And that is, we found that if we ask more than 2 open-ended questions on an application, the drop-off rate is pretty drastic. And they're not completing. Yeah. You know why? Here's what and real quick, when we talk about open-ended questions, it's describe this. Tell me about that. Here's why we found this out. This thing here, this phone, this is what 85% of people are applying on. And
Mm.
we're social, right? A lot of people are with friends watching a ball game. The kids play a ball game or whatever it is on their phone. They do not want to sit there and type sentence after sentence after sentence with 5, 6, 7 open-ended questions. We'd like to think that everybody applying for our job is at home with a big desktop computer, music's turned off, and they're focused like a laser. That's the world we lived in about 15 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe even 7 years ago. Everybody's using this phone to apply. So we've got to live in the reality that we're in, and how do we make it happen? So we want to make it as easy as possible for people to apply. I didn't say qualify. That's a whole different conversation, but as easy as possible to apply.
All right. So, how do we get people from the application process to the interview? Because I know lots of house cleaners will come to me and they're like, Angela, I had all these interviews set up and no one showed up for the interview. And
Yeah.
I laugh because I have my reasons, but tell me what your reasons are and how to get somebody from the application to the interview itself.
Yeah, the no-shows. I hear that every day. The no-shows. I've got a very simple answer that will solve the no-show problem almost for sure. And
Oh,
that
tell
is,
us.
it's very simple. Do group interviews.
Mm.
Because if you get 8 or 9 people that say you're going to show up and only one does, I'll take that every day of the week. If you do one-on-one interviews, it's very difficult to deal with 3 no-shows in a row, and then your mindset is completely blasted. You again hate recruiting. You're in a bad mood the rest of the day. You think you wasted your time. I highly suggest that you do group interviews. And I know it's hard to get kind of personal and really in depth with a group interview. And by the way, we can have a whole nother show on group interviews. We do it. It's crazy the way we do it. And
We
it
do
works.
as well.
Yeah, it's unique. But so you'll find a couple of good people in there, maybe 1 or 2, and that's okay, right? That's fine. If there's only 1 or 2 people that show up to the interview, then you can make it a little bit more personal. But there's nothing to say after a group interview that you can't have a one-on-one interview after that.
Mm-hmm.
But we do the no-shows. We don't like no-shows, so we do group interviews.
Is there anything that you specifically put inside your ad that would suggest that this is the type of company that you are and this is exactly what we're looking for, and you might do something a little unconventional that is not a standard or a typical thing for your ad?
We do. There's a couple things. One is that I like to use the phrase or something like it, why you're going to wake up every morning and love to come to work for us.
Hmm.
We tested that one sentence, and everybody steal that and use it and see if you get any different results. That alone changed a lot of things for us as far as no shows and interviews and quality and everything else. But that message has to continue. So when somebody schedules an interview, hey, I want to make sure you know why you're going to wake up every morning and love to come to work. We'll talk about it at the interview. And that message goes through. There's a few times where we'll talk to a client, and we've done this with our own company. Instead of saying we're going to vet and screen you, how about we say, this is actually something that we call a job satisfaction predictor. It's the same thing, but isn't that it sound a little bit better if you're actually looking through the lens of a job seeker or a job candidate? That's what you need to do. It's a tough thing to put your ego on the shelf, and I talk a lot about that. Put your ego on the shelf. You're not a business owner when you're recruiting. The better you get at looking through the lens of what a job seeker or a job candidate wants to hear, smell, taste, and breathe and live, the better your job ad's going to be, the better your interviewing is going to be, and the better your culture probably will be as well. So why you're going to wake up every morning and love to come to work.
I love that. We use just the opposite, oddly enough. Oddly enough, we have a disclaimer, and the disclaimer is this job is not for everyone, and it's not for the faint of heart.
Love it. Love it.
And then what happens is people will go, well, I'm not a faint of heart. I'm a go-getter. I'm a tough person. And then they will try to trip over themselves to try to prove to you that they're the kind of person that should deserve to have that job. So it's almost the takeaway close. We say it's not for the faint of heart and it's not for everyone.
Yeah. I've got a theory where and I'll go back. It's marketing and recruiting are identical. So in your job ad, and this is just us, in a job ad, we look at it as a website for prospective clients.
Mm-hmm.
And so because we believe so much in our screening process, our view is huge funnel on top. It's a job ad to sell that this is going to be a great job for you. And then we let our screening process and our scoring system figure out who's actually the ones that we want to invite to the interview. So if you don't have, and most of us don't, it took us a long time to put ours together. So if you don't have that, you might need to do a little bit of screening. And I mean a very little bit of screening in your job ad. One of the things that I think is a big mistake is if you make the job ad sound, though, like it's going to be, you better do this, you better do that, you better sound like this, you better look like this, you better, that's not what a job ad should be. And if you looked at some of my job ads 15 years ago, I wouldn't let my son apply for the job, so we've learned an awful lot with that. But you're right, there are some things and messages you want in there that will uncover some things before you even have communication with the human being.
Well, and communication is really important, because when somebody comes for a job interview, for me, it's kind of where the rubber meets the road. I'm trying to really find out if you are going to be a good fit for my company. And I don't want to sugarcoat things in the beginning, and I don't want to over promise, because it's really hard for me to try to deliver on my promises if I've over promised what we're actually going to be able to deliver. And so my goal on bidding jobs and my goal on recruiting is to under promise and over deliver. And so I want to be really shallow on the promises, because I don't want to say I'm going to give you this and this and this and this, because what I find I end up attracting, and maybe this is different for you, but if I over promise, what I find is there are a whole bunch of people that show up. Forgive me, because this is going to sound like I'm making judgments, and I'm not. But people that have these very long fingernails, and they're like, oh, I can't work. I can't do anything because I don't want to chip my nail. And then they just kind of dust a little bit of things like, okay, I'm done with the job now. No, that is not how we do. We have to really get down and get grubby, and we have to do the cleaning. We got to actually clean, right? Don't be walking around afraid you're going to break a nail, because this is a job where people pay us to get grimy, right? It's not cute. Right. It's not fun. But so we have to paint a realistic picture.
Yes.
So tell me what you would do in order to find the right fit for a company.
We rely on our screening process, our scoring system, and our screening process. We actually used to have a lot of those questions during the interview process. And we said, why are we waiting to the interview process to do that? Let's ask them on the online application, track it, and let that data determine, based on data, who's going to be a good fit for our company. And then what we do is, and this is going to sound crazy, I'm telling you, but it works for us and most of our clients. Our message is what to expect at the interview: 0 questions and 0 stress. It will be a presentation by the owner or manager as to why you're going to wake up every morning and love to come to work for us. Now, that doesn't mean we don't screen during this, but what happens is, as we're talking about our core values and our culture and how you can make money and even more money if you do these things, and how we started the company, where we're at today, and where we want to be in 3 years from now, okay? You're going to see people looking out the window. You're going to see people looking down, but you're going to see a couple people going like this a little bit and looking and asking questions. And I'm telling you, when you see somebody get a little bit excited about your culture and your core values, I don't know of any better screening than that. We've already screened them with our behavior and our sort of personality assessment stuff. I now want to see if you're going to really, really get a spark when you hear us talk about who we are. And it's the same thing. We're really screening. The other ones are the ones we're screening out. Wow. Now, Do we set expectations that this is going to be an easy job and the best job of your life? Absolutely not. In fact, we tell you there's going to be a lot of tough situations, but this is where our culture comes in. When you come in and you're not feeling real well, or you see a customer that you're, boy, she's kind of a pain in the butt, she's on my schedule, it's up to your team and the ownership and managers and the team to come up to you and get you riled up and get you in a good mood and take care of you. We're all in this together. That's part of the culture with that. So there are things that we definitely set the expectations. This is not unicorns and cotton candy all day long, for sure. We definitely tell them the expectations and how they're rewarded for those difficult times as well.
So there comes a moment if you have people that are like looking out the window and they're bored and looking at their phones and whatever. How do you tell those people like you didn't get the job?
So at the end of the interview, and imagine 5 people in the room, this is literally what happens almost every time. Those that were looking out the window say thank you very much and they walk out the door. The ones that were excited and asking questions, 1 or 2 will stick around and talk to you and say, that was really unique. I've never had an interview like that, or something like that. And then they say, you know what? I really loved what you had to say and I really hope I get the job. If we're hiring, we put our hand out and we say, Jane, you got the job. Subject to a few things that our insurance company makes us go through with background checks and so on. Always make it subject to a few things. But before everybody leaves, we tell them we're going to reach out in 24 hours or less, reach out to every one of you and let you know, where we're at with things. And so we'll email the ones out that we know that we're looking out the window and all that sort of thing. And we just let them know that it's not going to happen. If we get a lot of people to the interview and there's maybe 10 or 12 people in the room, and that doesn't happen a lot, but if there's a big location of ours, we actually will have somebody sitting in there as well, whether it's a technician or a manager or something like that, and they'll actually look around the room, because if you're doing a presentation, you can't see everybody and what they're up to. So absolutely, it depends. I want people that are excited about our culture and who we are.
So is there anything unique that you do that maybe a candidate did not see coming?
I don't think so. I think we used to do that. Our scoring system is probably something they don't know they're being scored. So that's a little bit different. But we used to do things like tell me a joke. And then wait and just, that's it. We'd be quiet and see how they react to see if they can think on their feet and that sort of thing. We used to do some things like that. I think for us, I'm going back and saying our screening system, we're so confident in our screening system. We just don't do that. And the tougher the labor market is, which is very difficult still right now, the less we're doing that type of thing. And again, would you do that to a prospective client? Would you do things that would surprise them and get them off their feet and make them? We don't. We treat them like the biggest sale of our life, because in the residential cleaning space, usually if you hire one person they're working 30 hours a week, 35 hours a week or whatever, they're going to go fetch $50,000, $60,000 of revenue for you in cleaning. I certainly don't have a client that is worth $60,000 a year residential. You better believe that I'm going to treat them like the biggest sale of my life. And that's just our mindset on it. And I think they sense that, and they sense that you are somebody that we're going to respect. You're coming into our house for an interview. We actually have beverages for them. We have things for them to eat, and we treat them like the biggest sale of our life.
I love that. That's great.
Thank you.
We also have a screening process. And the screening process is screened by 3 different people. And like you said, they don't know they're being screened. They don't know that they're being counted on a scale of 1 to 10 in 20 different areas. There's a possible of 200 on our score. And if we have less than a 150, we don't hire the people. Then we hire on fact, not charisma. Yeah. Because in the early days, I made the mistake of hiring on charisma. People would come in and they would wow me with their charm. And I was like, oh, this is the coolest person on earth. Yeah. And while I discovered that I would love to go hang out with some of them And there may be a time to do that. What I discovered is the person that's actually going to get the job done sometimes, and I don't want to sound ugly, but sometimes they might be a boring person with little
Yeah.
charisma.
Yeah.
And I have hired people, and I don't want to say any names, but I've hired some people that were boring and had no charisma, and they were the best employees ever.
I
So
agree. Absolutely. Absolutely. You
So
know,
for me, throwing a monkey wrench is not like to try to trip them up, but the monkey wrench in my business is this. When you come in and there's a group interview, the people that you're talking to while I'm doing one-on-ones in the other room, those are the people that are determining whether or not you get the job,
yeah.
not me. Because everybody tells me what they think I want to hear, but they let their guard down and they tell the other people in the room, here's how it really goes. And I cannot tell you how many times I've made a decision. I've got a pretty good reading. I've gone through my scorecard and I come into the other room after everybody's gone. I'm like, tell me what they think. Tell me what you think. And the other employees that are there are like, not him, not him. Yes to her, yes to her, yes to him. And I'm like, that's exactly what my reading was as well. And we found that we're all pretty much on the same wavelength because we do understand our company culture and we do know what we're looking for and we do recognize a good team player when we see one based on fact, not charisma. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's mo- if I went just on not straight a scoring system, I'd probably hire most people. I like people. I think I look for them, the best things in people, that type of thing. And so, yeah, I'd have a problem myself if. On the other point, if your name was Joe and I had a problem with a guy named Joe in high school or college or something like that, I might have a problem hiring you. You can't let those emotional things either dictate who's going to be there or not be there. Um, and to your point, to what we do, Angela, is we look at that and we say, if I don't want to hire a good interviewer or a good
Mhm,
test taker,
mhm,
I want to hire somebody that's going to be a good cleaning technician.
mhm,
And so some of the old questions that you might ask, we try to stay away from them. If you can Google it, I don't and find out how to take a test, and disc profiles have their place. They're absolutely fine. But I don't want to have somebody Google disc profile, because when you do that, there's 100 YouTubers on there telling you how to take that test and what the employer's looking for. And so
mhm.
I don't want to hire somebody. I want to be unique in what I'm doing and what I'm looking for. And it should be tied to your culture and who you guys are, and make sure it's a good fit. And that's all we're doing. It's like a match.com. You're just trying to get a good match between your company, your employees, your culture, and the next team member that's going to join the team.
All right. So my next question is, how do you find a good person that's I'm going to say a new person because they haven't worked for your company yet, that's going to integrate with the existing team that you already have and it's going to be cohesive?
I don't know if there's a magic bullet for that. I really don't. Um, I think that if you do everything that you can with the messaging and talking about the culture, and I think you hit it over the fence, expectation. I think after the hire, if you've got somebody that's going to have them and help them integrate into your culture and really talk about those things and continue the relationship, I think your training is probably the most important thing in all that, and how you're going to take that person and bring them in and train them on your systems, on your processes. I think that the number one thing you can do in your training, to me, is and to figure out how to rate the success level of your training is, how confident is that employee in doing his or her job. When you're confident in a job and you go in there with confidence, it's pretty easy to integrate and feel comfortable if you've got confidence, right?
Yes, it is. Crystal has a really great question. Crystal says, how do you get good employees and keep them?
I think you've got to have a really good culture. I think you've got to have really good leadership. I think you've got to research your labor market. I think you have to understand what job candidates want. If you're a company that's only got one employee or looking for your first employee, it's a little bit more difficult to have health insurance benefits and all these sort of things, right? Telehealth out there is a very interesting thing in telemedicine. COVID really catapulted this into our economy, into the business world. There's some pretty inexpensive telehealth things you can do. $20, $25 a month per employee. That's a good creative way to do some benefits. I think there's a huge benefit in being the first employee of a company that's going to, by next year, have 5 employees, because they're going to need to manage some people for you one day. Career ladders. I think to have a good career ladder is really important. What's in it for them? What's in it for them? That's really what's most important. I think if you're somebody that's got a small company and you're going to be the one that goes out and trains them, when they see how you're scrubbing and working hard and going after it and your passion, that's huge. I used to tell my employees, not one of you has cleaned more toilets or floors than I have. Trust me. I know how difficult it is to do your job. So I get it. Believe me, I get it. That goes a long way. Now, if you're a company with 5, 10 more employees and you're not doing the training and you're not doing the day-to-day activities like that, then whoever that person is, you need to make sure that they're taking care of that training and going out there and taking care of that person. How do you find good employees? There's a number of ways to do that. I think finding a good employee is just building relationships, talking with people. If you don't have any money to spend on boosting and sponsoring job ads and that sort of thing, most job boards have free stuff. Facebook is still free. You don't need to boost and sponsor there. If you have a church, a club, an organization of some sort, you definitely can find employees that way. I call it boots on the ground. And I love automation. I love data, but we still are in the people business. We still have to build relationships and talk to them. And how you keep them is you pay them well, you treat them well, and you have a great culture, and you've got something for them to look forward to, a job they want. That's it. I mean, everything else is silver bullets and kind of shiny objects.
So how important is hiring the right person for your business? Or can you hire a person that just is trainable and you can teach them everything they need to know about the business?
That's a great question too. I know a gentleman that does $200 million a year in the home service business. Okay. He's doing more than that now. And when asked about how did he ever find this many employees to do all this in different locations around the country? And his answer was, I kept hiring and hiring. When I didn't need to, I kept hiring. And if you were the worst on the totem pole, as far as whether it was your attitude, your quality, or whatever it was, I got rid of you. And that's what I did. So that's a $200 million mindset right there. That's how he did it. And he started doing that when he only had a location or two, not just when he was big. That's one philosophy, but there's no harm in doing everything you can to finding somebody that would be a better fit for you. I think it's when you're starting out and you have less than 10 employees, less than 15 employees, I think you've got to do everything you can to find somebody that's going to fit your culture. And so most of us, a lot of businesses don't even have a culture, a written formal culture for your business. And that's okay. A lot of you don't. Do it. Do it and make sure that it's cohesive to who you are and what your vision of your company is. I think there's companies out there that are happy with 1 or 2 employees and they'll live the rest of their life with that and be happy. And I think that's great. I think there's others that want to open up 3 locations one day. So I think if you find employees that are okay working in a smaller business, that's something to think about. That's something to talk about in the job ad. We're really and when I talk family owned, there's 2 or 3 of us here. We know each other very well and we take care of each other. That's going to attract somebody that's okay with a smaller business. If you're somebody that is looking to grow, then you want to attract somebody that is going to want to move up the career ladder. You're going to want to talk about that in the job ad. So that's a little bit different on where you're at with your vision of your company and maybe where you're at in your business cycle.
So, what do you say about the people that come to your company and they want to get a job with your company so they can learn everything there is to know about your cleaning company and then they're going to spin out and start one on their own?
Well, most likely they're not going to tell me that they're going to start it on their own. So if they tell me they're going to start it on their own, I don't know them very well, I'm not going to hire them. That's not happening. If they've been with me a while and they're in a couple, 3 or 4 years maybe, and they say, I think I really want to start my own thing, I'm going to have a sit down. If they've been a really good employee of mine and they've been a good person, and I sure as heck should know that after 3 or 4 years of them being with me, I'm going to talk a little bit about the possibility of having a little equity in my company, maybe a little bit of ownership in my company. If you want to, I'd love to partner up with somebody that's got that kind of ambition, and I already know who they are and their character and their behavior. That's the best business partner in the world. I'd have conversation about that. That's what I would do.
Nice. Okay, so going back to the guy that had a $200 million company and he was always hiring people, in spite of the fact that maybe he didn't need somebody at that time. And then he would reevaluate his current existing workforce and maybe send someone else out the door that was not living up to their potential. Do you hire somebody then just because a good person came along, or do you wait until you're desperate and you're in that frame of mind of, I've got to hurry and hire somebody this week or my business is going to collapse?
Yeah, I would say this. We have a mantra with Hire, Lead, and Chill, and it's the ABCs of recruiting. Always be recruiting. Always be recruiting. So I'll answer that in a couple different ways. One is we believe in a hopper strategy. So you can do this. If you're always recruiting, we always interview whether we're hiring or not. I want to interview people. And I've had clients go, well, that's not very respectful that you're not going to hire somebody and yet you're having them in for an interview. A couple things with that. Number one is I don't know if somebody's going to break their ankle that day of the interview or not. So I'm going to be prepared for that. Number two, there's nothing against the law that says you can't start a relationship with somebody and tell them, we're in a high turnover industry. We can't quite place you now because some things have happened. Can I stay in touch with you? I've never had anybody get up and scream and throw chairs that I've said that to, and neither have our managers. I will say this. If you've got a few employees, 5, 6, 7 employees or more, I highly suggest always be recruiting. And if you've done really well in our application, you love our culture, you've done really well in the interview, I'm going to hire you and figure it out later. I'm not letting you go anywhere. That's just how we operate. And I can't tell you how important it is to be, if you're going to err on the side of having too many employees or having too little, I beg you to have too many employees than not enough. There's just so many horrible things that will happen to your business and your bottom line if you're short-staffed versus if you have maybe one person too many, maybe 2 people too many. It's just, there's no comparison. I don't know if I answered your question, but
yes, you did. And I want to tag on to that because this is a really important thing that I think a lot of the new cleaners miss. Okay, so the reason, and we also do the same process, we hire people even if we're not hiring. And for every job interview, even maybe I'm only looking for one person, I usually hire 2 because somebody's going to drop out, and or if 2 people learn the same job simultaneously, I'm doing one training, I'm training 2 people simultaneously. So it saves me half the time for training. Not only that, but now they're fighting for the job. Okay. There was only one job and both of us got it. I hope I get to keep the job. And in the minute that somebody doesn't show up or they fall out or they're no good at what they do, somebody else has already learned the job. They've already been trained on it. They can totally take over. Okay.
Right.
But the other thing is this, and this is the reason why we are always recruiting. I've never used that term, but I love it. I think it's amazing. When I'm desperate and I go to hire somebody, the person that I'm hiring, I'm hoping they're going to save my business. Okay. Here's the catch. The person that wants the job, they're looking for a job because they're hoping I will save their finances. And so this is two desperate people coming together, hoping the other person is going to save the day. And it doesn't usually happen that way. If you are not in a position of confidence and strength, and you are, hey, we don't need anybody right now, what happens is you come at this with desperation and you hire the wrong people because you're hoping they're going to save the day. And they usually don't. They're hoping you're going to save their day. But if you hire people like, oh, a good person just came along, we kind of don't need them, but let's figure out a place for them. What happens is oftentimes you'll end up hiring somebody that doesn't really need you either. And they're like, well, this is a company and they're doing really well. And somebody recommended that I take the job, and maybe I can offer something, maybe. And it's a completely different frame of mind on both parties. Now, it's both parties doing this because they want to, and they want to make it work, not because they're desperate and they're both kind of going down the same sinkhole.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think that's brilliant. I don't know that I've ever thought about that part of it. There's so many things that can harm you with that. That's something I don't think I've put much thought into it. That's brilliant. Absolutely. You know, I look at it like this. If you picture a starting basketball team on the basketball court and there's 5 starters and they look over at the bench and there's nobody on that bench, how hard are they really trying to keep their job? When they look over at the bench and there's 3 or 4 people on that bench ready to take their job, they're going to be staying after practice, practicing free throws, getting better, trying to improve themselves. That's just how we do. That's what's natural. And if you're a C employee, you're probably going to end up quitting because you know you're not going to be around very long anyway. The other thing with it too is when you get it, the most desperate that I've been in when I owned my cleaning company, and you talk about being desperate, right? Was when I knew I had to fire 1 or 2 people, but I was so afraid of being short-staffed. I couldn't be more short-staffed, so I'm going to hold on to these 1 or 2. You feel like you've lost control of your business because they know they should be fired and they know they've got you. And worse than that, I think, is what are your A employees doing? Eventually, they're going to wonder why they're waking up every morning, getting here early, and these people are getting away with everything. And why is this happening? And they want to help, but they're just wondering. You've lost control of your business when that happens. And so I'd much rather be a little bit overstaffed than understaffed. And we're very proactive about that. And like you said, Angela, when we need to hire 5 people, we want to make sure that there's double that at the interview. We want to make sure if we need to hire 1 person, we're hiring 2 at least. And that it's really, that's the truth of it. You've got to be that proactive with your recruiting and hiring.
I love this conversation. And oh my goodness, our time has come to an end. Where did our time go? This is fantastic. Please tell our listeners where they can go to find you, Shawn.
Absolutely. So you can go to hireleadchill.com. We've got all kinds of information on there. I've got a Facebook. I'm doing podcasts and things like that, like Angela. Hire Lead Chill is our group on Facebook. And if you want to talk to me about anything, you want to see our system, you want to know what I might be able to help you out with finding good employees, giving you some good ideas to try on your own, or hire us. Go to Hire Lead Chill, and there's all kinds of buttons on there that says request free demo with Shawn or something like that, request a demo. And it's not that I'm just going to give you a demo, but I'll answer any questions you have and we'll chat about anything you want to chat about.
Awesome. Okay. So with this being the new year, I want to encourage everybody to always be recruiting. Thank you so much, Shawn, for today. This was awesome. You guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.